And I feel like it's good to start thinking about our work in terms of the nourishment that people need to keep going versus my thing needs to match the trauma of the time.
Yeah.
Hey, yo. Pimpin' on the east side. I know this a West Coast beat, but it's a freestyle. I've been kinda stressed and I freaked out. Good thing I got a brain that could reroute. That shit ain't got nothing to do with me.
Oh, man.
Black person.
What it do, black person?
You famous yet?
Still trucking on.
You know?
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, these are great earrings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fire. I'm trying to be like you and that girl. That's
Oh,
like,
okay.
let me get my Victor on real quick. Let me find me some cool earrings.
Shared flyness. Yeah, so we back at it.
Yeah.
Episode 7.
Whew.
And yeah, I feel good about being here. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. I feel like we've been, kind of allowing topics to come to us.
For sure.
And it's been very fruitful.
Yeah.
To kind of just like follow the energy of whatever's happening in our lives, and this episode is going to be no different from that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the things that I get more and more present to as we go through this process is how much it really is allowing us to be creative. Mm-hmm. It's not, let's just do a podcast because people are doing podcasts, but we're really exploring storytelling, I feel like, and how to do so in a way that's authentic
to us.
Absolutely. Yeah, took the words right out of my mouth. So we were planning to talk about collaboration initially, and we had our pre-production meeting, and you were like, yo, what's on your heart, what's on your mind, as we usually do. And right before we had our meeting, I was doing artist things. I was like, okay, like I got these collages and, I want to do more prints of my artwork. Let me research vendors and work on pricing and figure out kind of how I want to market these different things or put them out into the world and share them, because that is part of being an artist sometimes. And I was feeling, focused and intentional and empowered in doing this. And then there was this moment where I kind of got like smacked a little bit, and I started feeling really conflicted. And the conflict that arose in me was, how can I or how do I feel good about making art or sharing art or promoting a thing or selling a thing when there's so much turmoil in the world. There seems to be so much strife affecting people and impacting people. I mean, living in New York and New Jersey, we get exposed to, I think, a lot of things on a first-hand basis in terms of what's going on within our communities. And I felt, I don't know if it was shame, but I felt a disconnect between me wanting to put art out to share and to possibly sell when there are people hurting. And I had that acute awareness probably because in part of being an artist, I feel extra sensitive to these things. It's just like, is this the time for me to be thinking about promoting my work or sharing my work when people are really, really going through it? And so that was troubling me, man.
That's so interesting. Why do you feel like, this is very interesting, it's like, why did you feel that there was a disconnect between your work and what is happening in the world? Like, where do you think that came from?
I think part of it is me being a storyteller, and I want to, it's important to me to reflect the present, like the current time. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of artists. And the work that I was specifically looking to share, which was some of my collage work, didn't necessarily, there was no like commentary
on
the ills of society. Like, this isn't radical. Nobody wants to see these flowers and trees or whatever, or like this self-port, like whatever the thing is. How are people going to, like, there's like it's like 17% struggle in here, but it's
not enough struggle.
It's not enough struggle.
It's not 2024
right. I don't
struggle.
feel like he really lived through anything yet. And so I think it was that, like, so like this narrative started getting creative of like, getting created of, if I'm not commenting on what's going on in the world with my work, does it still have value? I think that's where I was struggling. And
it also seems like some of your value or your perception of value might have been caught up a little bit in how other people perceive what you were putting out too.
For sure.
Which is like, can paralyze us from making decisions and choices about the work that we do too.
Absolutely.
That's really, really interesting. I think a lot of people, artists, may find themselves in like a very similar predicament.
Yeah.
And as I was really thinking about, what you were saying and how it felt to you, I think sometimes, number one, in getting caught up in people's perceptions is always like a journey to nowhere. But two, I think we also sometimes as artists forget that the work is a mechanism for healing.
Absolutely.
And if we don't put that work out, we are robbing other people of the ability to heal from our work, even if if you don't think that it is connected to what is happening during these times. And another thing that really I felt like spoke to me was like, we don't give enough credit to the work that is unseen. Like, for every person that we see that is, on the front lines speaking to a particular time and space that we are in, for every person that is sounding the alarm about injustice, there is probably someone close to them that gave them a hug that they needed.
Right.
There's someone close to them that cooked them a meal that nourished them, to be able to go and engage in the world and the way that they needed to and how they need to show up. And I feel like it's good to start thinking about our work in terms of the nourishment that people need to keep going versus my thing needs to match the trauma of the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. It all has value. And as you're speaking, I'm also thinking about, there's never really been like this ideal time of like worldwide peace and like everything is just, everybody got food and nobody is struggling. So art has always had to exist in the midst of whatever's going on in the world. And so even in a time where there maybe seems to be a concentration of difficulties, or difficulty seems to be more widespread, politically and socially, art has always, it's been the record of what was happening around us and within us, and also like the way through, and as you said, the way to heal from some of what's occurring in the world, or some of what we may be experiencing firsthand. And in some instances, and people may have different feelings about this, but a way to, if only temporarily, retreat from some of what's going on. There was something you said during our conversation yesterday. It was just like, I don't have the capacity to process all this trauma at one time. And I think there is something so valuable and important to be honored there, because I don't think we necessarily give permission to people to say, like, I don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you not talking about this? You not posting about what's going on in North Uzbekistan? Like,
not North Uzbekistan.
Like,
I hate you.
but so
true.
so yeah, and it's like we dismiss people, or we make people feel ashamed for not caring or seeming to care about what we care about, or not being as educated about it as we are. And not everybody's capacity is the same, or maybe they are.
And everybody has different callings.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I am not an intellectual like a James Baldwin or a Toni Morrison. I'm not gonna write essays about something.
Right.
So somebody coming to me and be like, "Why you ain't write an essay about XYZ?" doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There are people who have voices and they are eloquent in speech, and that's their calling. There are people who are gonna, paint something that speaks to it in a way that is helpful to us, that helps people process it differently. And I think sometimes when we get caught up in minding other people's business, right? Mm-hmm. And wanting people to show up in the ways that we want to show up, I think we miss what is so colorful and beautiful about having a different calling.
Yeah.
And I also think that we undo or undermine the very compassion that we want to be put out into the world, because now we have a neighbor that we're looking at and we're lacking compassion because we actually don't know what their calling is. Mm-hmm. And so we're demanding them to speak to a time in the way that we think it's supposed to be spoken to, versus sharing the compassion that we preach about.
Right.
And then having that compassion for ourselves is another part of the conversation too.
Absolutely.
It's like, I don't have the capacity to deal with this right now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to have compassion for myself to not have the capacity to speak to this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move in a particular way that is not built on shame.
Right.
And fear.
Yeah.
Because I'm having compassion for myself today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that. I think that's so essential for humans in general, but maybe especially for artists. Mm-hmm. I'll go ahead and have my bias, but because so much of our work, there's so much energy expenditure. Mm-hmm. We're going within to bring a thing back. Mm-hmm. We're getting particular downloads where, you were telling me about a recent performance you had. You're engaging with live audiences. Mm-hmm. There's so much work that is unseen. Yeah. So I think part of that compassion that we have for ourselves can be conserving energy, right? And minding the fact that, okay, my capacity is not there right now, or I'm actually really depleted.
Yeah.
I need to take a beat to replenish, to get a hug, to be nourished in different ways before maybe I can think about how I'm engaging with my work, or how, if at all, my work reflects what's happening in the world. And what you said about the calling piece is really important as well, because everybody is not called to do the same thing. Not everybody gets the same assignment. Yeah. Right? So we talked about, okay, art can very much so function as this thing to stir people up and to be a call to arms and get and educate, right? And inspire. But it's also, you mentioned entertainment, right? So we don't stop needing joy in the midst of troubled times. We need it now more than ever. Yeah. We need to be able to still laugh because we've cried so much, or we've seen other people hurting so much, and we have empathy. So where do I turn to? Like, I don't just exist in a vacuum, So I really appreciated that you brought that back to mind in terms of how art again functions as something to help people cope. It's like I'm getting enough of the traumatic things in my neighborhood, on the news, on social media. I just want to look at a beautiful painting, or I just want to listen to my favorite song, and find the comfort in that, and create or enjoy community around that.
It kind of, I feel like in some ways we've gotten away, well, in many ways, we've gotten away from understanding what community is, because we have access to so many different people, so many different opinions, so many different lifestyles. But within communities and within villages, you have people who have different gifts. You have, your healers, they mixing up the herbs, and, they have the ability to heal people. And then you have, your statesmen and the people who are the voices, and they're able to speak. And you have the nurturers and people who have this innate ability to nurture and guide and help and bring people along. And it's like, you would be hard pressed to find somebody who would go to a healer and be like, okay, now you need to be a statesperson, right? Because that's just not my gift.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be okay with the fact that people are different, and that in certain times it calls for very specific different people.
Yeah.
And that we just need to allow those people to step to the forefront in particular ways, and then step back. And I just think that there needs to be an ebb and flow and an exchange of energy, to where we understand that it's all, in some way, it all comes together. And although we're not doing the same thing, we can still be fighting for the same thing at the same time.
Yes. And I love how you brought that together. I was thinking about I told you about the 𝙘𝙧𝙚𝙚 quote that I wanted to share. That kind of speaks to some of that. So this is a portion of what she had put on social media. Tried to drop some music and get my mind back right, my focus back, and the rage is just extremely prevalent. This shit is fucking me up, been fucking me up. It should be fucking a lot of y'all up, but apparently it's not. What's good, y'all? We don't sell out shows without a crowd full of people. The songs don't chart without people. The trends don't trend without people. And when I read that, I definitely felt her rage, her frustration. It resonated with me in a real way. But I also saw like the duality of it, right? Again, we're not all called to do the same thing. I do think it's important to have somebody in her position. We talked about influence, right, as well. To have a certain amount of influence and be like, this is on my heart right now, and I want to speak about this. And I think it's important to be challenged sometimes too, because sometimes that is the spark to maybe get somebody to think like, absolutely, yo, I haven't really been like connected really, or maybe I'm not feeling particularly empathetic, and to that's an opportunity for us to ask ourselves,
find their voice.
Absolutely. And so she may inspire some of her peers to be like, you know what, like I actually do want to shift, or I do want to educate myself, and not for the sake of being able to make a post or maybe even make a song or whatever, but I just want to be more in touch with the human experience in a way that I may not ordinarily afford myself, because when you have a platform, or when you have great resources, it can also insulate you from what the rest of people got going on. So, there's no right or wrong, right? And like, oh, you're not talking about social issues,
but for whatever reason, we want it to be a right or wrong, which I don't quite understand. Like, I'll give you an example. I literally, after we had our like pre-production conversation, this woman who I adore, I follow her on social media, and she made a post about what's happening currently in the world. And in my mind, I was like, yes, show people compassion. Yes, use your platform. Yes, I love this. We love to see it. But as I'm like reading the comments, there are people that are on the comments that are like, well, where was you on this date when this happened? Did you not have compassion then?
Right,
and it's just like, God, dang, like, why do we want people to have the same like moment of clarity as we had at the same time?
Right.
That doesn't even make sense.
Retroactive shaming.
Yeah, it's just so weird.
Yeah.
What I'm just like, what is this inability to simply applaud people for where they are?
Yeah, on the journey.
On their journey. Where does this come from? This inability to have compassion and meet people where they are. Like, there are people who fight for causes for, you know, maybe their daughter had some type of a brain issue, right? And they make art about that brain issue. You know, I have a client who works with artists who do art based on dementia, and that's because dementia has touched them personally.
Yeah.
And so it is a heart posture for them to speak about it in a way that is authentic to them.
Right.
So why would I get mad at them about not talking about cancer? Cancer has not hit their home in such a way that it's called them to action.
Oh, you don't care about cancer? You down and kick, like,
you know?
But that's,
it's goofy.
Yeah, I
it's
think
just
it's
so goofy.
It's a lot of, I think it's a mix of things, right? It's virtue signaling and kind of like this holier than thou sort of attitude. And I think a central part of it that we've touched on is really failing to recognize one another's humanity, because none of us has the capacity or ability to know it all, to speak to it all. Like, it's not humanly possible.
Yeah.
You can go out on the street now and talk to 10 different people, and they all have a different knowledge base, life experience, perspective, and insight. You know what I mean? It's just like, so it's really important that we leave room for people to not know things. And be willing to have conversations and be willing to educate sometimes, whether through art or other means, because I think it's important to have awareness, right? Like, there's lots of things I don't know, like you said, about dementia specifically, right? But if I go and visit an exhibit where all the works are highlighting people's experiences with dementia, it might open my eyes to that world in a way where it's like, wow, I never really considered that, or I didn't know what the experience of somebody going through that is, right? I've had plenty of experiences with people, loved ones dealing with cancer. I can speak to that. I've had people who've been incarcerated. I could speak to that. So, and it all is connected to that thread of humanity, right? So one pain is not greater than the other. So we it's not fair to discount somebody's experience or perspective because they're not speaking to what you think they should speak to you when you think they should be speaking to it. You know.
So my question for you is, after you went through that phase or that mode of kind of like thinking about your art in terms of, you know, what your responsibility is as an artist, should the work that you are putting out be speaking to the times in a particular way, or thinking about how your art may be perceived by other people, or your efforts be perceived by other people, what did you conclude?
What did I conclude? Good question. Really, where I arrived at, and thankfully Spirit didn't let me spiral too far, was just like, I've always kind of led with my heart creatively. And we talked about that as well. So it's just like, I have a great deal of empathy. I am highly sensitive to things. I am very observant and curious. I like to listen. And all of that gets channeled into my creativity, whether I like it or not. So there's really no way for me to separate it, right? So I can see the hungry person on the street. I can see the migrant kids in my neighborhood. and it's stirring all types of feels up in me. Now, when I go home and work, those experiences, those souls are still with me. I'm still reflecting on them, and it may not translate in an overt way where the thing that I'm making is directly speaking to them, but I'm navigating the empathy, or carrying the empathy that I feel for them, and imagining their struggle, and giving myself a means of grounding, of healing, of honoring those feelings, but also not being boxed in by them. You know, and there are other times where I might write a poem and it's very specifically talking about a conversation I had with somebody on the street, or somebody I saw, you know, like laying on the ground, and you know, I don't know if you know, are they alive, are they ODing, or you know, I talk about those things. So it's never been something, I don't think, even if I wanted to, I could keep it from my art, but I don't necessarily identify like myself as a conscious artist.
Got you.
But I'm an artist who's in touch with their
But you are conscious, because what you just described is someone who is very conscious.
So it's like I don't need to limit myself to being one type of artist. And perhaps there will come a time where it's like, you know what, I want to write a play, or I want to write a short story, or whatever it is that's talking about a very specific experience, and this is the call to action, this is the call to arms, or this is what's weighing the heaviest on my heart. Right now, I get to speak to the multitude of the human experience, so I get to reflect on the beauty, right, and the things that inspire me and calm me and ground me, and perhaps will do the same for others if I choose to share that work. But I also get to reflect on the difficulties, the things that are heavy and challenging, and that I lay awake thinking about at night, because I know it's not just me. You feel me? That's the other thing. It's just like, and I said this to you in our pre-production meeting, whatever I put out, if I put out the socially conscious stuff, there's going to be an audience for that, who's looking for that, or who's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said this, or the way you captured this was so on point. And if I put out the things that aren't necessarily overtly conscious, the people who are concerned with the social stuff, they need that too still. Sure. Right? And the people who just need a beat, or like I'm at capacity, or you know, that's all I'm getting. They need the other stuff as well. So just embracing the gift of being able to tap in and be aware and speak to a multitude of things. I think that's the gift of being an artist. We are the collective memory of society.
The through line that I felt from you is, what I love is follow your heart. When it comes to making your art, just follow your heart. And I think if you're following your heart, even though it sounds cliche, following your heart and being authentic, there's always going to be an audience for it, and it's always going to be the time for it.
Absolutely.
Because then there was a conversation surrounding time. Is this the time for this? Well, if it's in your heart, now is the time. I actually have like a little small excerpt from Toni Morrison that I found that I think eloquently speaks to some of the things that we've been talking about today. And it's a little long, but I think it's super relevant. She did an essay. It's titled, "No Place for Self-Pity, No Room for Fear." And she says, Christmas, the day after, in 2004, following the presidential re-election of George W. Bush, I am staring out of the window in an extremely dark mood, feeling helpless. Then a friend, a fellow artist, calls to wish me happy holidays. He asks, "How are you?" And instead of, "Oh, fine, and you?" I blurt out the truth. not well. Not only am I depressed, I can't seem to work, to write. It is as though I am paralyzed, unable to write anything more in the novel I've begun. I've never felt this way before, but the election. I'm about to explain with further detail when he interrupts shouting, "No, no, no, no." This is precisely the time when artists go to work. Not when everything is fine, but in times of dread. That's our job. I'm not going to read the rest of it because I think that is like, that's it. No, no, no. This is precisely the time that we are supposed to do it for the purpose of healing. And I don't know what novel she was writing at the time, but I have a feeling that maybe the same type of friction that she was feeling about her work in conjunction to what was happening in the world was probably happening in her at the same time.
Yeah.
And so the call to arms is to just do the work, do the art, put it out there.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong time or way of being, like you said, as long as it's authentic and from the heart. We appreciate you tapping in, but don't be stingy.
If you were inspired or motivated by anything you heard, please share our podcast
with a friend or an artist you would like to encourage on their journey.